Reborn into the family of my insulter, now I'm the one in control. And this time, I'll make sure no one gets to write my story but me. I stood there, frozen in the conference room's doorway, while everyone else filed out with tight smiles and eyes that refused to meet mine. Without you, Victoria said coolly, brushing invisible lint off her pristine white blazer, this project might have had a chance. Her voice was soft, but sharp enough to split me in two. I forced a nod. Not even a whisper of protest. Just like always. Close the door on your way out, will you? She added, already turning her back. I did. Silently. The hallway lights flickered overhead, too bright, too cold. My heels clicked against the marble as I walked, stumbled, toward the exit. My vision blurred. I wasn't crying. Not exactly. Just unraveling. I should be used to this by now. 8 years of working under Victoria Martell. 8 years of tight smiles and venom in silk. 8 years of believing that if I just worked harder, bent more, stayed quieter, she might finally see me as more than an expendable assistant. She never did. She broke me quietly, like a vase slowly cracking from the inside. And I let her. The stairwell door creaked open under my hand. I didn't even remember choosing the stairs. The world tilted. Was it the ringing in my ears? Or the scream echoing inside my skull that had never made it past my lips? 1 step. Then 2. Then my ankle twisted. My body lunged forward, weightless, breathless. And then darkness. Not the soft, sleepy kind, but the kind that feels like being swallowed whole. When I opened my eyes, everything was too bright. White canopy curtains, crystal chandeliers, silk sheets beneath me, and a pounding in my chest like someone else's heart had taken up residence inside me. Miss Eliza? You're awake. A girl in a maid uniform, no older than 18, rushed toward me, holding a tray that rattled with porcelain cups. Her face was wide-eyed and pale. Eliza, I croaked. My voice, higher, wrong. My throat felt strange, too smooth, too young. Then she said it again, her voice trembling. Madame Victoria is furious. She says you humiliated her in front of Mrs. Charlotte. The name hit me like a punch. Victoria. I sat up too quickly, and the room spun. The silk nightgown I wore slid against my skin. Luxurious, unfamiliar. I scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping on the long hem, and stumbled to the mirror above the vanity. What I saw made my stomach drop. A girl stared back at me. Pale skin, wide green eyes, and long honey blonde hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She looked 16, maybe 17. She blinked. I blinked. I touched my cheek. So did she. I opened my mouth. She mirrored me. This isn't me. My name is Sally. I'm 27. I have a scar above my eyebrow from when I fell off a bike in 5th grade. I have coffee-stained teeth, and a face I never liked seeing in selfies. That girl had never been me. Eliza, what are you doing out of bed? The voice hit me like a slap. I turned slowly. Victoria Martell, just as I remembered, tall, sleek, poised in her designer heels, with that same expression of cold, eternal disapproval etched into every line of her perfect face. Except this time, she was standing in the doorway of what appeared to be my bedroom. And she was looking at me the way a mother looks at a daughter who's disappointed her. Again, you embarrassed me, she hissed, stepping into the room like a panther. You know how important Charlotte's support is for the foundation. And instead, you mumbled like a fool and spilled tea on the tablecloth like a feral child. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Just breath. Her eyes narrowed. Don't give me that look, Eliza. You're not a child anymore. You're a Martell. Act like it. 1,000 thoughts clawed at my brain. She thinks I'm Eliza, her daughter. But I'm not. I'm Sally. I worked for this woman. I feared this woman. I died. And now I'm here, in the body of her daughter. A girl I'd only ever heard mentioned once in hushed tones. Boarding school. Discipline issues. Ungrateful brat. My heart raced. The chandelier sparkled overhead like a crown of knives. Victoria turned to leave, heels clicking in disapproval. "You have 15 minutes to get dressed. Do not be late again." The door slammed behind her. Silence. My fingers trembled as I pressed them against the vanity, anchoring myself in this surreal world of marble floors and perfect molding. This was impossible, unthinkable. And yet, I looked back at the mirror. Green eyes. Maybe this time things could be different. Maybe this time I would be different. I straightened my shoulders and smiled. The walls of the Martell estate were too clean, too pale, like everything had been bleached of warmth or softness. Every surface gleamed. Every picture frame hung at a perfect, calculated angle. It wasn't a home, it was a showroom. And apparently, I lived here now. My footsteps echoed down the marble hallway as I followed the servant girl. "Marta," she'd whispered, toward what she called the breakfast salon. The name alone made me want to laugh. Or scream. Or both. I caught my reflection again in a passing mirror. Still not used to her. Eliza. The long honey blonde hair, delicate features, the graceful posture that came effortlessly with a different skeleton. She was pretty in that expensive, breakable kind of way. No sign of me. No trace of the worn-down woman with bitten nails and tired eyes. Only this girl. This daughter. "Miss Eliza," Marta said softly, opening a tall set of doors. "Breakfast is being served. Your mother is waiting." My stomach coiled. Mother. No matter how many times I said it in my head, it didn't stick. Victoria Martell was not my mother. She was my abuser, no. My captor in another life. My undoing. But now, I was her blood. And she didn't even recognize me. I stepped into the dining room. It looked like something from a magazine, high ceilings with painted clouds, a table long enough for 20, though there were only 2 place settings. Victoria sat at the far end, sipping coffee like she was bored by her own wealth. A tablet in one hand, perfect nails tapping. "You're late," she said without looking up. I walked to the opposite end and sat, hands in my lap. "Sorry." She raised an eyebrow. "Sorry, that's all? No hysterics today? No excuses or pouting?" I lifted my eyes and met hers. Cold. Calculating. The same eyes that used to look through me when I brought her coffee at 7:01 instead of 7. "No," I said flatly. "No hysterics. No pouting." Victoria tilted her head slightly, finally lowering the tablet. She was studying me now. Really looking. Like I'd changed the music in a familiar room. And the sudden composure? I picked up a fork. Maybe I just got tired of being a disappointment. She snorted lightly. Self-awareness. That's new. I didn't blink. Maybe that's what happens when you treat someone like a doll long enough. Eventually they crack? Victoria's smile was tight. "You're not a doll, Eliza. You're my daughter. That comes with certain expectations." I set my fork down gently. "And I'm telling you right now," I said, voice calm, almost gentle. "If you keep trying to pull my strings, I'll start speaking. Loudly. And I don't think you want anyone to hear what I have to say." A beat of silence. Then another. Her eyes narrowed. "What is this little performance?" "Not a performance," I said, standing. "Just a new script." I walked away from the table, my pulse thundering in my ears. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't sit there another second. "Don't you walk away from me." "I already did once," I murmured. "You just didn't notice." I didn't stop walking until I turned a corner and nearly ran straight into a tall man in a crisp black suit. He didn't flinch. "Apologies, Miss Eliza," he said smoothly, bowing slightly. "I didn't see you coming." His voice was deep and composed, but there was something else behind his eyes. Something observant. "Who are you?" I asked, breath still catching in my throat. "John," he said, "head of household staff." He studied me closely, too closely. "You've changed," he added, not unkindly. "Just factually." I froze. "What do you mean?" He tilted his head slightly, lowering his voice. "The old Eliza never walked away from your mother." I tried to steady my breathing. Maybe she finally got tired of playing nice. His lips twitched. Then maybe this version of you will survive. He stepped aside to let me pass. And I did. Barely. Back in what was now my bedroom, I collapsed into the velvet chair by the window. I felt electric, terrified, and powerful all at once. My skin hummed. My mind raced. What had I just done? She broke me once. Completely. Turned me into a shadow of myself. But now? Now, I was her daughter. Her heir. Her mirror. And she had no idea. She saw a rebellious girl playing pretend. But I wasn't pretending. I was rebuilding. The Martell family didn't just send their children to school. They sent them to a battlefield, dressed like a luxury catalog. St. Lysandra's Academy wasn't a place where kids learned math and manners. It was a proving ground for the next generation of predators. Heirs and heiresses with veneers of poise and poison in their pockets. Everyone had a family name sharp enough to slit your throat. And Eliza Martell had a reputation, just not the useful kind. She'd been quiet, timid, weird, easy to corner, easier to humiliate. I knew the type too well. I'd been her in another life. Now I wore her face, her uniform, her history. But not her silence. I stepped through the grand sun-drenched archway of the school's entrance hall, my books clutched to my chest like armor. Every corner gleamed. Gold trim on marble staircases, a chandelier that would shame Versailles. Even the lockers had personalized gold nameplates. Eliza. The voice was saccharine sweet and already unbearable. Amelia Farros. Blonde, polished, and terrifying in that polished dagger sort of way. She strutted toward me in her immaculately tailored skirt and blazer, followed closely by Jared Blackwell, her equally venomous shadow in a school tie. "Welcome back," Amelia cooed, looping her arm through mine before I could dodge. Her nails dug in gently. "We were just saying how we missed you." Like a rash, Jared added under his breath, smirking. Old Eliza would have flinched. Blushed. Maybe even muttered a thank you in that shaky voice she used when cornered. I didn't. I tilted my head and smiled with teeth. "Funny. I don't remember you being this clingy." "Lost your dog over break?" Amelia blinked. Jared blinked. Then they both laughed. Too loudly, too forced. "You're in a mood," Amelia said tightly. "I'm in a new chapter," I said. And walked away. Behind me, their laughter turned to whispers. The first class was politics and philosophy, which felt appropriately ironic. I slipped into a seat in the third row, close enough to hear, far enough to vanish if needed. My notebook stayed closed. I didn't need notes today. I needed strategy. As the professor droned about ethics and statecraft, I surveyed the room like a chessboard. Most faces were half familiar from Eliza's memories. She'd sat silently among them, erased herself so completely that no one had even noticed her collapse. Except one. He walked in 10 minutes late, with the kind of confidence that didn't ask permission. Leo Crow. Dark curls pushed back carelessly. Tie loosened. One hand in his pocket, the other lazily spinning a silver pen between his fingers. He didn't look at the professor. He didn't look at the class. He looked straight at me. And smiled. I looked away first. Unfortunately. When class ended, I didn't rush. I waited for the hallway to thin out before gathering my things. Until a shadow fell over my desk. "You're different," Leo said. I glanced up. "And you're obvious," he chuckled. "You used to blush when I said your name. Now you look like you're planning a coup." "Maybe I am." He raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" I stood, and slung my bag over my shoulder. "Only if you're planning to stand in my way." He stepped aside, still grinning. "Wouldn't dream of it." I walked past him, head high, breath tight. But he followed. In the courtyard, I heard him again, this time louder, playing to an audience. "So what's with the new personality, Eliza? Did you find your spine over the break or just a better therapist?" Laughter trickled around us. A ring of vultures gathering. I turned slowly. Leo stood with his hands in his pockets, perfectly composed, perfectly smug. He wanted me to shrink, to fold, to prove that I was still the girl he could toy with. I took a step toward him instead, and smiled. "If you're going to bite," I said, voice sharp as glass, You'd better make sure you didn't just piss off someone who knows how to sting. Silence. Then, "Oh," someone whispered from the edge of the crowd. Amelia stared like I'd grown a second head. Leo blinked. And then he laughed. A genuine one this time. "You," he said, pointing at me with his pen like a sword, "are interesting today." "I plan to be interesting every day," I replied. "You should try it." And then I left him standing there. For the first time, Eliza Martell walked through that courtyard, and no one dared step in front of her. The inner garden was the only part of the estate that felt alive. Walled off by stone arches and framed by ivy-covered trellises, it pulsed with soft, earthy green and birdsong. I didn't know if Eliza had ever come here, but the real me, Sally, needed air that hadn't been filtered through the cold machinery of luxury. I sat on the edge of the fountain, skirt folded neatly beneath me, and stared at the koi drifting in lazy circles. Their movements were aimless but peaceful, like they had no idea they were trapped. "Miss Eliza." I turned at the sound of his voice. John, the butler, always composed, always watching. He wasn't young, but he didn't move like an old man. Every step, every glance was intentional. And right now, his eyes weren't polite. They were studying. "I brought your tea," he said, holding out the silver tray. "Thanks," I replied, reaching for the cup. My fingers brushed the handle, then stopped. He was still looking at me. Not at my dress. Not at my hair. At me. Something in my throat caught. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated, then set the tray down on the stone ledge beside the fountain. Straightened his coat. Smoothed the fabric. Then, in a voice quieter than the breeze, "Your voice." I blinked. "It's different," he said. "Your tone. The way you speak." My heart beat faster. He wasn't done. "Your posture, your expression, your eyes." He met mine. "You're not her, are you?" The words hit like a slap and a blessing at once. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stared at him, throat tight, every part of me screaming to run and hide and deny. But I didn't. I held his gaze. And for a long silent second, we simply sat there, with the wind rustling the hedges and the koi flicking their tails like lazy secrets. He sat beside me, slowly, like he'd known I wouldn't scream. "Eliza," he said softly, not as a name, but as a memory. She was kind, at heart, but lonely, quiet, cracked in too many places. His hands rested on his knees. "I served this household for 27 years. I've seen the way Victoria breaks things she's supposed to love." I looked down at the teacup, untouched. "She was a good girl," he continued. "But she never fought back. She never believed she could." I felt something behind my ribs ache. Was it guilt? Sorrow? The weight of wearing a girl's skin after she had been erased from it? "You are not her," he said again. Still, I said nothing. And still, he didn't press. He just nodded to himself, as if confirming a private theory. "Then let me be clear, whoever you are. If you are here to harm this household, I will stop you." I raised my chin slightly. "And if I'm here to fix it?" He looked at me. Really looked. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Then maybe you're exactly who she needed to be." My breath caught. My hand trembled. He rose, gently lifting the tray again. "I will not speak of this to anyone," he said, as if we'd signed a contract. "But I will be watching, and, if you allow me, I will help." Quietly. I nodded. That was all I could give. And it was enough. He bowed slightly. "Tea tastes best before it's cold." Then he walked away, leaving me alone with my shaking hands and a teacup I suddenly couldn't lift. I stared after him, the garden now painted in deeper shades of green. Someone knew. Someone saw me. I wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, this was the first time I didn't have to hide to survive. The room felt colder at night. Even with the silk sheets, the velvet drapes, and the flickering amber light from the chandelier above, there was something hollow about this space, like warmth had been removed by force. Eliza's bedroom. My bedroom now, I supposed. But it didn't feel like mine. Not yet. maybe not ever. I wandered to the tall white bookshelf in the corner. Rows of perfectly aligned spines, untouched, unbent. Decorative knowledge. A life arranged for display. Except for one book. It wasn't aligned with the others. A little cloth-bound journal, wedged between two leather volumes, barely visible unless you look too long. I pulled it free. No title, no label. Just faded red fabric and a tiny golden ribbon bookmark. My heart pounded. I didn't know why. I sat cross-legged on the bed and opened it. The handwriting inside was small and slanted, letters curling inward like they were trying to hide. February 3rd. She said my laugh is annoying. I didn't mean to laugh. I just forgot I wasn't supposed to. I turned the page. February 10th. Martha brought me hot chocolate again. I think she pities me. Maybe pity is still better than nothing. Another. March 12th. Mom said I was an accident. A punishment. She said, "You were supposed to be something else, and now look at you." I wanted to say I could be better. I wanted to ask her what she needed me to be. But I just nodded. Like always. My hands trembled. These weren't journal entries. They were confessions with no listener. A soul trapped between obedience and longing. April 6th. Sometimes I pretend I'm someone else. Someone brave. Someone with fire in her chest. I try to walk like her in the mirror. I even smile like her when no one's watching, but it always fades when she walks in. I forget who I was pretending to be. And I become nothing. And then, on a torn page near the back, Mom said I'm a mistake. So why do I still want to hug her? That's when the tears came. Not mine. I didn't feel them start. My face stayed still. But the drops hit the page in slow, soft rhythms. Grief that didn't belong to me, leaking from a heart that had already stopped. Eliza, I whispered. She wasn't weak. She wasn't stupid. She was broken in quiet ways. Trained to disappear. And now she was gone. But her pain remained. In this room. In this book. In me. I closed the journal carefully, fingers shaking. She didn't ask for a second chance. She didn't get to fight back. I owe you, I whispered, placing the journal beneath the pillow. Not for your life. I looked at the reflection in the mirror, her face, my fire. But, for your truth? The old me had wanted revenge. Burn it all down, make Victoria beg, take everything she ever cared about, and shatter it like glass. But now? Now, I wanted more. I wanted to change the rules entirely. I didn't just want control. I wanted to rewrite the whole game. No more masks. No more silence. No more pretty dolls left to rot in locked rooms. The dining room glittered like a trap. Crystal stemware. Candelabras casting golden shadows. Plates arranged like portraits no one dared disturb. The long table was crowded with elegance. Victoria's chosen guests for the quarterly Martell philanthropy dinner. Which in reality, meant a gathering of carefully curated power and passive aggression. I sat at her left hand, where Eliza had always sat. Quiet. Decorative. But not tonight. Tell me, Eliza, Victoria said sweetly, her voice slicing through the chatter. Did you finally manage to memorize the name of the school's endowment committee? You did make quite the mess at the last board meeting. Laughter followed. Gentle, controlled, polite cruelty at its finest. I picked up my wineglass and smiled at her. Oh, absolutely, I said. Especially after reading through the financial breakdowns of the Martell Education Fund. Fascinating how donations marked for scholarships ended up rerouted through subsidiaries owned by your consulting firm. Forks froze mid-air. The room went quiet. Victoria's smile didn't falter yet, but her eyes sharpened like knives. Excuse me? I took another sip. It's public record. If you know where to look. Unless, of course, your personal assistant was using your credentials without your knowledge. But that seems unlikely. Murmurs swelled around the table. One of the guests, a silver-haired woman in pearls, cleared her throat. Victoria, is that true? Victoria stood, napkin trembling slightly in her hand. Eliza, may I speak to you, now? I rose without rushing. Of course, Mother. I followed her into the adjacent study, a sleek glass-walled room overlooking the moonlit garden. She didn't close the door gently. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed, whirling on me. Her poise cracked at the edges. "This is beyond insolent. You're sabotaging your own family." "No," I said calmly. "I'm just done pretending your version of family is the only one that counts." Her eyes narrowed. "You are not yourself. You've been erratic." "Maybe I finally am myself," I said, stepping closer. "Maybe I stopped performing the obedient daughter just to be your perfect reflection." "You're crossing every line." I smiled, slow and sharp. "Your lines were bars on a cage. And I'm holding the keys now." She took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. In that second, I saw it. Something I'd never seen in Victoria Martell before. Fear. She didn't know me anymore. And that terrified her. "What do you want?" she demanded. I tilted my head. "The same thing you always wanted." "To win?" "No." I let the word linger. "To matter?" She flinched. I turned to go, but paused when I reached the door. "Oh," I added casually, "you might want to check the endowment account Monday morning. There'll be some very curious eyes watching it now." I stepped back into the dining room. All conversation stopped. They were still staring, every guest, even the help. Leo was at the far end of the table, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed loosely over his chest. He wasn't hiding his amusement. Our eyes met. He raised his glass to me, slow, deliberate, and mouthed, "Damn." The Martell country estate looked like it had been torn from the pages of a royal romance. Rolling hills, manicured hedges, and a white marble veranda that gleamed beneath the soft afternoon sun. But the woman waiting for me there could freeze sunlight with a smile. "Aunt Julia," I said sweetly. She turned, cup in hand, the very image of elegance. Her silver blonde hair was pinned in a flawless twist, and her emerald earrings caught the light like tiny blades. "Eliza," she purred. "Or should I say, the new and improved version?" I didn't flinch. Instead, I sat across from her and reached for the tea she'd already poured. Earl Grey. Predictable. "Victoria is quite rattled," she said casually, stirring her cup. "Not an easy thing to accomplish. You've been entertaining to watch." "I didn't know I was performing," I said with a tilt of my head. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, darling. In this family, we're always on stage. Some of us just remember to charge admission." She took a sip, eyes locked on mine. "Would you like to win?" I let the silence stretch before answering. "Depends on the prize." "Freedom," she said, folding one leg over the other. "Money. Reputation. The chance to make Victoria fall so far she'll never claw her way back. Tempting. Too tempting." "And what would you want in return?" I asked, voice soft. She leaned in, her perfume a whisper of violet and ice. "Your loyalty. Your name when needed. And silence if I ever ask." So there it was. Not a partnership. A contract of convenience. She didn't see me as a niece. She saw me as a tool sharpened by trauma. Still, tools could cut both ways. I widened my eyes just slightly. "I'm not sure I understand all the business details, Auntie." She smiled. "No need. I'll take care of the heavy lifting. You just smile and shine. The Martell legacy will reward you, I promise." "Of course," I said, voice light, naive. "And the offshore account under your maiden name. Does that come with the legacy too?" For just a flicker of a second, her smile faltered, then returned. Stronger. Sharper. "Well," she said, setting her cup down with delicate precision. "I see you've been doing your homework." "Only a little," I said sweetly. "I like to understand what I'm part of before I sign away my soul." "Smart girl." She stood and extended a hand, long fingers glinting with rings. I took it. Her grip was cool, poised and hollow, and in my mind, the words whispered, "Everyone in this family is a snake. But I've learned to drink tea with poison." It started with a folded note slipped into my locker. Not a text, not a cryptic emoji on social media, just old-fashioned paper, creased once, with one line in sharp, confident handwriting. Dinner, Friday. Your choice. I'll behave. Probably. L. No name. No need. Leo Crow wasn't exactly subtle. Still, I stared at the note longer than I cared to admit. He was dangerous. Too charming. Too reckless. The kind of boy who played with matches just to see what would burn. And yet, when Friday arrived, I found myself in a quiet corner of the city's rooftop bistro, the sun dipping low behind glass towers. Leo leaned back in his chair, wearing a midnight blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and mischief dancing behind his lashes. You came, he said, grinning. I was 50-50 on it. I almost didn't, I replied, sipping my sparkling water. He smirked. But curiosity won. Or boredom. You're not bored, he said. Not tonight. Not with me. I hated that he was right. We talked. About books we hadn't read. Teachers we barely tolerated. People we didn't trust. He made me laugh, which irritated me. But his gaze never wavered, and for once, he didn't try to be clever when I asked something serious. Why me? I asked, watching the city lights flicker. Leo shrugged. Because you changed. And I like people who surprise me. That's it? No. He leaned forward. It's also because I think you're dangerous now. And that makes you interesting. Dangerous how? He smiled slowly. You make people nervous, even Victoria. Especially her. That's hot. I rolled my eyes but didn't leave. When the night ended, he didn't kiss me. He just said, I hope you keep playing. You're getting really good at this game. The following week, St. Lysandra's hosted its infamous Winter Colloquium, a semi-formal academic showdown that let students dress like adults while tearing each other apart intellectually in front of their families. I wore black. Not for drama. For focus. And maybe, just a little, for power. Victoria didn't show. But someone else did. Thomas Ainsworth. He stepped into the auditorium like he belonged there. Tall and composed in a charcoal suit, eyes scanning the room like a detective in a crime novel. Whispers followed him. He's the Ainsworth heir? Didn't his father try to buy out Martell Enterprises last year? Why is he even here? He slid into the row behind me without a word. I didn't turn. But when the debate ended, and applause echoed around us, he leaned forward. Interesting performance, he said near my ear. I finally looked at him. Thanks, I said. Are you grading me? No. His voice was calm even. Just observing. And you wear a mask, he said plainly. But it doesn't quite fit, too tight, a little cracked. I stiffened. You don't know me. I know pretense, he replied. And I know when someone's not sure if they're lying to others or to themselves. I stood, preparing to leave, but he stepped into my path. I'm not here to make enemies, Eliza, he said. But if you ever get tired of pretending... I'm not pretending, I snapped. He nodded slowly. Okay. Then maybe I just hope you find a mask that fits better. I left without another word. But his gaze stayed with me all the way home. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Two boys. Both dangerous in different ways. Leo, who saw me as a thrilling challenge. Who wanted the fire. Thomas, who saw through the smoke. Who asked about the ashes. I was used to using people. Turning affections into leverage. But now, something in my chest tugged. A thread I hadn't meant to pull. Was this still part of the plan? Or was something in me shifting? I closed my eyes. And whispered to the darkness, I play games. But what happens when the game starts playing me? The Martell Foundation boardroom was a cathedral of power. Glass walls, leather chairs, men and women in tailored suits and colder smiles. A marble conference table ran the length of the room like a battlefield, and I stood at one end, alone, in name only. Julia sat across from me, legs crossed, sipping espresso like nothing in the world could touch her. Are we quite finished posturing? She asked lightly. The board murmured in agreement. They'd come for numbers, not drama. I smiled. Almost. Just one last thing. I tapped the remote. A screen behind me flickered to life, revealing a series of transaction records. Clean, precise, annotated. The name J.V. Wren repeated throughout, Julia's maiden name, buried beneath shell companies and foreign accounts. Gasps rippled around the table. I turned toward the board members. Over the last fiscal year, over $2.7 million were redirected from the Martell Legacy Initiative into consulting fees, tied to non-existent firms registered under false names. All roads lead back to Julia Wren, our trusted advisor. Julia didn't blink, but her cup paused mid-air. "This is outrageous," she said calmly. "You expect us to believe a teenager with a grudge uncovered something our accountants missed?" "No," I said, stepping closer. "But your arrogance did." I slid a printed packet across the table to the chairperson. "Independent audit. Verified 3 days ago." Silence. Then the chairperson nodded once. Slowly. "Miss Martell," he said to Julia, cold now, "will be requesting your immediate resignation, effective today. Legal will follow up." Julia stood, not in shame, but in fury so cold it crystallized the air. She didn't look at me until she reached the door. Then she smiled. Not defeated. Just wary. "You've grown teeth," she said softly. "Be careful who bites back." And then she was gone. The moment the door shut, I finally let myself breathe. The board was buzzing now. Whispers, reassessments, curiosity. I knew what they were thinking. She's dangerous. She's not the Eliza we knew. Good. I walked into the hallway, heart still thudding in my ribs like it didn't know which body it belonged to. "Hey, Leo." He stood waiting beside a pillar, hands in his pockets, hair messy like he'd run a hand through it 1,000 times. "You just took down your aunt," he said. "That's honestly terrifying." I raised an eyebrow. "Are you impressed, or scared?" "Yes," he said simply. I laughed. Couldn't help it. For once, it wasn't a weapon. He stepped closer. "I know I joke a lot, but for what it's worth, I don't think anyone's ever made this family nervous like you just did." "I'm not done," I said quietly. "Good," he said. "Just don't forget who you are while you're winning." Before I could answer, another voice cut in. "Impressive," said Thomas. He stood across the hall, hands folded behind his back, expression unreadable. "Didn't think you'd pull the trigger in front of the whole board," he said. "But you did it clean." "It wasn't personal," I said. "I know," he replied. "That's what makes it admirable." He paused. Then softer, "You used to look like you were carrying 1,000 pounds on your back. Today you walked like it belonged to someone else." "Maybe it did." He nodded once. Then added, "For what it's worth, I hope you find a way to put it down someday, not just pass it to someone new." Something in me twisted. Leo watched from behind, saying nothing. And for a flicker of a moment, I saw myself from the outside, standing between two boys, both seeing different parts of me, one drawn to the fire, the other to the cracks underneath. Was it still a strategy? Or had I started needing them in ways I hadn't planned? Love had always felt like a trap. A weapon. But maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to be. It happened on a Monday. No grand scandal. No flashing lights. Just a quiet announcement at the Martell Foundation's executive breakfast. Victoria Martell would be stepping down from her position due to health concerns and internal restructuring. Polite applause followed. But I watched their faces, calculated indifference hiding electric relief. They were glad. Not because she was gone, but because I'd proven she could fall. And now, they were watching me. By noon, every family in our orbit had heard. By dinner, my name was on the guest list Victoria used to guard like treasure. And somewhere far away, Julia Wren was licking her wounds, trying to rewrite the story of how she lost to a girl she once called useless. I should have felt triumphant. But all I felt was quiet, a silence not born of fear, but choice. I didn't have to scream anymore. The garden behind the estate was gold with evening light when Leo found me. I was sitting on the stone bench beneath the ivy wall, the same place I'd once cried after Victoria's sharpest words. Today, the tears were gone. "Hey," he said, voice softer than I expected. He held out a soda, not champagne. For once, he wasn't trying to impress me. I figured you'd need something not poisoned, he added with a crooked smile. I took it. Smart. He sat beside me, but not too close. For once, Leo Crow looked unsure. I know this started as a game, he said. And I played too hard. I pushed, teased. Maybe I saw the fire and wanted to own it. He looked down. But somewhere in all that, I started just wanting to stand beside it. With you, not ahead, not behind. I didn't answer right away, because just a few minutes later, I heard footsteps again. Thomas. Of course. He didn't interrupt. He just stopped a few feet away and tucked his hands in his pockets. I'm not going to make a speech, he said plainly. I know you've had enough of men trying to claim you with words. I smiled faintly. Then what are you doing here? He met my eyes. Being here, not as an ally, not as a rival, just a man who sees you. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathed in the scent of roses, sun-warmed stone, the tension between two boys who both, in their own way, saw parts of me that even I was still learning to accept. When I opened my eyes again, neither of them had moved. You both say you see me, I said. But what if I don't fully see myself yet? They said nothing. And that silence gave me more peace than all the praise in the world. I don't know what's next, I said honestly. I don't know who I'll love, or if I even need to choose right now. I stood, brushing off my dress. But I know this. I want my choices to come from me, not fear, not pain, not revenge. I turned toward the house, the gleaming white palace that had held generations of control and secrets. Then I turned away from it. Toward the gates. Toward the world beyond. I heard them both behind me, waiting, hoping, but they didn't chase. Because now, I led. And as I reached the tall black gates, I paused, looked over my shoulder. Not in regret, but in power. Because for the first time in my life, I was not someone's doll. Not someone's pawn. Not someone's mistake. I was mine. And as I walked through the gates, I didn't just end her cycle. I began my own.